This here's a great question down here. And Corey, are you familiar with Gottman? Gottman. I actually went with my wife to this convention. It wasn't he was speaking. It wasn't a convention. I don't even know what I'm saying. But I went there, and I went to my wife. I go, "Why am I here? Why?" And I want to ask you, how does your view of relationships differ from Gottman's?
Oh, I like Gottman a lot. Okay, he doesn't understand gender differences. Any kind of message that's missing gender differences has got a huge hole in it, as far as I'm concerned. So, what point?
So to speak.
Yeah, good, Gary. Got some humor there. So,
got you, Corey. Corey's not very funny.
So, give me a couple of sentences of what you got from Gottman, and I'll tell you how I respond to it.
I'll tell you what I got from it. I left. I got nothing. I got nothing, and I got nothing. I got nothing from God.
Coffee talk with the Tika. Nothing rhymes with that but chicken tikka. We name drop here with Stephen and all his friends.
Kid. We have somebody today to help you with your marriage, at Disneyland. If you're compulsive and you just want to go to Disneyland and the wife is agreeing with you, do you think she really wants to go to Disneyland? I don't know. These are the questions I want to know. Corey, like you go on the internet, you have a show. Does your wife upset if you don't make the bed or make the bed? These are questions that I'm going to ask John.
My wife makes the bed. I never made a bed in my life.
Well, maybe if you made the bed, you have happy wife, happy life. These are questions that we need to answer because it's about a happy marriage. Now, look at Miranda, a doctor she's married to. She's beautiful.
Yes.
And look at Miranda's beautiful. And the doctor, he likes to pick weeds. That's his thing. Does it bother Miranda? I don't know. Does he give her money to go on the weekends shopping? No, she has a Patreon account. She comes to ADIKA for help. These are questions that John Gray can help. Now, Miranda, I'm going to let you. You're the smart one. You're the beautiful one. You even have the books. Tell us a little bit about our next guest coming up here.
I do. Sure. This is Dr. John Gray. He's a PhD. He's famous for the Mars and Venus books. There's Mars and Venus in Love. It's the happy stories. I think that's a good one to read because I like the happy stories. And his basic premise stems from when he was actually a monk, and his brother had a little bit of then a little bit of a bipolar situation, so he became a therapist. And when he was first interacting with women, he thought they were from another planet, and eventually he hit a point where he made the claim that after ET came out, men are from Mars and women are from Venus was birthed from there. And I think that it was a beautiful marketing technique, that a beautiful touch that just took off. It hit. And he's written, I feel like, a library full of books, but it started in 1992. He's been positively influencing people. I signed up for his website and got a great little 13-minute video, which you can also go to his website and sign up for a free video and tutorial. His beautiful daughter was in the video. So he's a great guy. I'm looking forward to speaking with him. This is Dr. John Gray.
I grew up in Houston, Texas.
Yeah.
And 5 brothers. And in the 60s, I had lots of sex, drugs, rock and roll. And after Woodstock, I really crashed. And my mother said, look at that poster in your bedroom. I had the strobe lights, the fluorescent lights, the posters, the bed, the whole shebang, and my own little apartment outside the house. So I was having a fun time as a teenager. And my mom came in, she said, John, who's that guy with the Beatles? One of my posters. And it was the Maharishi. Then a week later, I was into karate. And somebody said there's a samurai warrior exhibition. So I went, and it was a seminar on transcendental meditation. The same guy that the Beatles said, you could get high and you don't come down, you get it naturally. So I was sold on that. And I really went down after 3 days on psilocybin and rock and roll. So I said, okay, I want to try that. And I loved it. I then became his personal assistant. I taught his teacher training programs. I wanted to be just like him. He was like an Indian guru, and he was a cool guy. And he was also celibate. And so I was pure celibate monk. I was like totally disciplined, like you're a musician, it takes discipline to be a musician. It's focus, focus, focus. But I was like when I write books, I write for 10 hours a day when I do it. But when I meditate, I do 10 hours a day. I really got good at this, loved it, got really high, all the things they say about, kind of spiritual enlightenment stuff. And then my brother was bipolar. I came to study psychology. I wanted to help him and discovered I'm really good at counseling and then got married to my wife, Bonnie, 32 years.
Congratulations.
And thanks. I'm going to talk to her in present time. She passed 2 years ago to cancer. And I'm kind of over the edge I'm crying all the time. I'm not anymore. And I've got a girlfriend and I'm happy again. But I'm going to refer to my life with Bonnie because I learned all this stuff in my books behind me. Pretty much my journey of personal growth, and a lot of it's on relationships with her. And she's been my partner and all that. So it's as if she's here. So I'll refer to her that way. So that's how I got into all this.
Wow. Wow. You know what? And here's Corey Leviton. We know what the funny thing is, before we get started, I love that he said something, Corey. Wait 1 second, because this is very important to me. Beatles. Magic word.
That's where I'm going.
Oh, that's where I'm going to.
This was
Before you go, hold on. I want to get a reaction from Mr. Gray. Or if you mind if I go, John, I'm going to ask you something right now. I want to know what this album means to you right here.
Love it. Absolutely love it.
I want to see the reaction from you.
I love it. I love the Beatles. Are you kidding? I love it.
You love it. Was it that? What was the first time you heard the Beatles? How was that to you in your life? That's what I need to know.
When I was 13 years old, I saw the Beatles. Okay.
Oh my God, really?
Oh yeah. All the girls were screaming, Ed Sullivan thing. And then they came to Houston, Texas and did the arena there. And my mother got me tickets and I saw the girls screaming the Beatles. And I thought they were really cool, but I said, I'm not going to scream. And as soon as they came out, there was a group beforehand and, we were listening to music. And then when they pulled the little label off the drums, it said the Beatles. The women were up, they were screaming, and I was up too. Everybody was up. It was some kind of global Beatlemania. I mean, it was a reality. Everybody was screaming. Later on, my wife said that women were actually having orgasms. They just didn't know.
So basically, I think the Beatles were the beginning of John's writing experience.
Absolutely. And the thing about the Beatles, and then the next big turnaround for me was Jimi Hendrix. I remember I had a friend who went to school in Switzerland, came back with an album of Jimi Hendrix before Are You Experienced? He says to me, now let's go. We're going to lie down, turn out the lights and lie down and listen to this music.
Oh, wow.
Jimi Hendrix. All those things, I'm a rocker. I love it. I love being high. And I learned how to get high on love and meditation and service and sex. Sex is really big to me. I love sex, but only with somebody I love. It's that's how you get really high. People,
John, the Beatles actually gave the Maharishi a bad rap. It came out only years later that John was wrong. There was a guy, a super fan along with him for the ride, a guy called Magic Alex. I'm sure you know about the guy. And he was jealous of anybody who got John's attention.
Yeah. And
so he was jealous of the Maharishi, and he made up these stories about the Maharishi not really being celibate, about him being with the women in the ashram. And it was complete bullshit. The guy was a decent guy. And actually, we know he was because George Harrison remained a Hindu for the rest of his life. Paul McCartney still does meditation to this day, but nobody wanted to challenge John. Whatever John decided was the way they went because nobody wanted to upset the apple cart.
Yeah,
but,
and George, George even later apologized, for bad rapping him, just like. But yeah, Marshy was a great guy. He was a great guy. And, he wasn't a fully integrated guy. He was a monk. Monks learn how to find happiness inside and how to meditate. But the real test is be a good person and go out there and make money, have kids, have a family, integrate it into your life with win-win and, having to face the stresses of the world and still bring love and light into the world and do your best at it. And, but he taught people how to meditate, which is a great thing.
The great thing. When you went to be a monk, did you have that Beatles in your thought? Like, you're like, okay, is this what they experience? I mean, Corey, come on.
Totally. Oh, the first time I met Maharishi, he had just left the ashram with the Beatles. They were there. And he came to America. I took this 1-month course in Poland Springs, Maine. I got on an airplane all by myself. I'm like a young guy going to New York, then going to Poland Springs. And I thought I was going to see the Beatles. Okay, I really went to see the Beatles. they weren't there. I was so disappointed. But he was really, really fun. He was great. He was an inspiration. You know, I'm a young guy. I needed direction in life. I needed to feel like, you know, there was more to life than what I saw in Texas. And there was more to life. And then I left Texas and lived with Maharishi for 9 years in India and Switzerland. And then I came back and started having my life in the world.
9 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Not just 9 years, but 9 years of celibacy, no masturbation. This is a big deal. You have to take that energy that creates life and you channel it into a culture, into meditation. It was my culture. You know, basically a super musician, for example, when you're doing your music, if you're also celibate during that time, you'd even be more brilliant. And maybe you are, I don't know. But see, what happens to men, we know this biologically, is when you masturbate, I'm not shaming masturbation. I'm a teenager. I did it a lot. I just learned the power of not doing it. When they've done research now, and when you masturbate, your testosterone goes down 50%. If you do it regularly, it stays down 50%. If you go 6 days without masturbating and then you have sex with somebody you care about, your testosterone will double. And then this has been proven. You got all these young guys doing porn all the time. Their testosterone is so low. Okay, at 21 years old, they're impotent, many of them, and they can't stay turned on to the same woman because their testosterone isn't high enough. Because here's some research. When a guy's single, he's got testosterone levels at a certain level. Hopefully they're healthy. Then he gets in a committed relationship, they'll go down more. Then he gets married, they'll go down more. Then he has children and they'll go down more. That is the averages when we look at our society, the way we live our lives. Now I'm 70 years old this year, 50% higher than when I was a young man. Have sex every day, basically, because I've learned to have sex without ejaculating. I can have lots of orgasms without ejaculating. This is advanced stuff. The beginning of it is for the young generation, just to understand their testosterone level is necessary for well-being. When testosterone is low, your stress levels will be higher, period. That's proven. So when a man is depressed, his testosterone's down. When a man is unmotivated, his testosterone's down. Now for women, it's the opposite. They need estrogen. They need to have, for well-being, a woman's estrogen will be about 10 times higher than a man's. For men and well-being, their testosterone is about 10 times higher than women's. So when I learned all this about hormones, I went back to my books and realized everything I observed about men and women could now be explained with hormones.
Wow. Very interesting. Now, let me ask you, you started out saying when men get married, they have kids. Maybe how about the men getting bored out there? And they're using, I have a headache tonight. Maybe that could be a reason. Maybe they're with the wrong person for some of these guys, huh?
Well, there is such a thing as being with the wrong person. Now, I've been a counselor for 50 years or been doing this work for 50 years, right? And once I got into really doing therapy with people, one of the things I would ask was, let's go back to a time when you fell in love with your partner. And people will always say when they're ready to get a divorce, they always say, I don't even remember. I don't even think I ever really loved them. That's because the relationship shut them down to feeling the love in their heart. Love is kind of like sunshine and clouds get in the way. But that whole thing about loss of libido, I tell you, I just the last month, there was a couple of no sex at all. They're both having affairs, can't get turned on to each other. They made a few changes. The guy had to stop ejaculating. The guy had to go 6 days without it. And on the 7th day, it will double. Now, if you've been out of commission for a while, it takes a while. So what you do on Saturday night is you make out and you give her a sensual massage, but no sex part of it. And that starts building up her estrogen. And once her estrogen gets higher, then she desires sex. What we know to be the case is that men can have really low testosterone, but they desire sex. But it doesn't mean that they can continue to perform because it gets too low. So a guy who can't, you see, the reason the testosterone starts going down in marriage with kids and everything is they don't have good relationship skills to boost the man's testosterone, keep it higher. And the woman doesn't have good relationship skills to keep her estrogen up. But even if you did, if a guy's having sex twice a week for years, his testosterone never has a chance to double. And so it slowly goes down. So your average 35-year-old and that generation, it's going down every year. Mine went up every year. This is like what's possible for men if they learn to manage that sexual energy, which I happenstance went with by being a celibate because I was looking to be spiritual.
Very interesting. Okay, the celibate 9 years. That's
I'm
very
masturbating
interesting.
right now.
Yeah, of course.
It's an addiction. Hey, here, okay, it's an addiction. And I remember what Bill Maher was saying something like, "Oh, he went to a sex clinic because he has sex addiction." Some guy who was having a, but isn't every guy have a sex addiction? That's not sex addiction. That's
No,
what
Bill
he
Maher
has.
has one. I used to see him out in Hollywood all the time. Every night he was out with a different prostitute. He's
I
got
know.
a sex addiction.
Yeah, he does. He does. But I'm telling you, anybody who's ejaculating, any guy who's ejaculating over once a week, he has a sex addiction. His testosterone will be half what it could be. And so he's seeking gratification because when you ejaculate, if you're a guy, biologically, your estrogen level shoots up really high. That's the female hormone and knocks your testosterone down 50%. Which, by the way, for women, that's good to know because often your husband makes love to you and then he just rolls over and ignores you. Mm-hmm. That's because his testosterone went down. It has nothing to do with how much he loves you. And actually, he could love you so much because love is estrogen. That's why men, as they love their children, love their wives, the estrogen goes higher. Estrogen lowers testosterone unless you have good relationship skills to bump up that testosterone. And men, by the way, are not polygamous. That's another one. You know, there's all these books written about how men or women and are different, and men can make so much sperm in a day. We're designed to go around, have sex with everybody. And you can if you're a monkey. You see, we have a big part of our brain, which is a monkey. 90% of our DNA is monkey DNA in our brain. and the thing that controls sex drive is actually not even monkey DNA. It's actually the dinosaur DNA. It's literally that same part of the brain that regulates sex in a man is the same part of the brain that regulates violence. So am I violent? No, if I'm a monkey, I'm violent. If I'm a monkey, I want to have sex with everybody, but I'm not a monkey. I've got this one part of my brain up here called the prefrontal cortex, the only part of the body that has human DNA. And that human DNA is what allows us, if we're in that part of the brain, to choose love over primitive reactivity. And that's what our hope is as human beings, is to learn how to be generous, virtuous, loving, kind, creative, win-win, successful, harmony. You know, all these good qualities we want only occur when your blood flow is going to the front part of your brain. And when you're in a fight or flight reaction, you're living in fear, blood can't flow there as much. So you go into what's called the conditioned brain, and you have all this reactivity as opposed to choosing. I mean, like, why should you ever be angry, for example? Mm-hmm. What good did that ever do? But we go, oh, I'm angry because you said this and this and this. So what? Somebody shoots me the bird. Okay, that's your issue, not mine. Why take it personally? The monkey brain takes everything personally. Everything is somebody else's fault. As opposed to, okay, well, why am I getting so upset about this? Maybe I need something. I like something. What's the best way to get that? Is yelling and screaming the best way to get that? If you're monkeys, yes. We're not monkeys. Let's learn how to communicate.
I need you. I need John in my life. John, you don't know. I need you because I might be a monkey. Everything he's saying,
we're all monkeys. Just get it. You know, the Indians, they talk about, it's like the mind is like a big, huge elephant. And all you are is this little guy on top. And if you're wise, you can direct the elephant, but it's doing everything. But you can't get on top and train it.
It's really, you got to train your mind. This is, everybody's going crazy in the audience right here. This is an important one right here. What about when men have female energy and women have male energy?
Well, that's my whole book. Thanks for the question. That's this book here.
Let's hold that book up right there.
That's called Beyond Mars and Venus. That's when the men go to the female side more. When they have more estrogen, their testosterone is low, and women have making more testosterone and their estrogen is low. Then you go beyond Mars and Venus. So let's go back to the 60s. This is really fun. All right. So what happened in the 60s? Rock and roll. Mm-hmm. So I got kicked out of school because I wore bell-bottom pants and wouldn't cut my hair. I eventually cut my hair and in the summer grew back out. But basically, I was becoming a girl, right? This is growing up in Houston, Texas. Guys do not have long hair. Oh, I felt so good. I was long hair, getting high. I didn't go to Vietnam. I protested for peace, you know, everything, peace, love, sex, freedom, all that stuff is female. That's estrogen producing. So the men who are used to being like, you know, detached and goal oriented and sacrifice and go to war and all that stuff, That's masculine energy. That's testosterone being focused on making money, sacrificing to achieve your goals, goal orientation, analysis, all that. A lot of qualities I talk about here generate testosterone. Well, I was in the 60s. That whole thing with all those women going hysterical, this was a huge consciousness shift. After World War II, it was basically everybody thought now we're going to live in a time of peace. It was the war to end all wars. And suddenly something happened. Prosperity happened in America, and women suddenly felt free. Men were free. Men could go to their female sides, as I just mentioned for me, have bell-bottom pants and boots and a belt and thinking all about fashion. You see, that's my female side. Love. Women went to their male side, and that's when you started the beginnings of feminism, which is, we're going to break through the glass ceiling. We're going to make money. We're going to be independent. Anytime you're focusing on the part of you which is independent, I don't need anybody, I'll do it myself, that produces testosterone. So when men have addiction, for example, which we have so much addiction today, is that's men going over to their female side. The female side is depending on something outside you to make you happy. Depending on yourself to be happy is your male side. So men went way to the female side, and that's good. I'm happy. But we lose touch with our male side. It's the new challenge now that people can be on both the male and female side. How do you balance it? How do you balance it? And you're a musician, so you already have a brain that already is challenged more because musicians are on the male side and the female side. All that discipline, but also you're able to go with the flow. You're able to be spontaneous, but you've got structure. That's like a meditation. You're like a meditation master when you play music. It's amazing what musicians can do. That's why they grow their hair out. They're guys on their female side, but they're also their male side. And they can handle, to a certain extent, their female side because it takes a lot of discipline to be a musician. I mean, basically, you have to be really motivated. I'm going to be a musician so I can get laid.
That's right.
The bottom line.
That's the bottom line. Yeah.
Bottom line. I'm going to be so disciplined so I can go inside of a woman. You see, I want to go to my female side. Sex became this big, huge thing for men, bigger than it was before, because here's the difference. Just think about it. When you have sex, every man almost today says, did you have an orgasm to the woman? It's like we want her to have an orgasm. We want her to be happy. That's a phenomena of men being more enlightened. The previous men in the past didn't care about women's orgasm, and women didn't care about their orgasm. They just did it as an obligation to the husband. And it was fulfilling because he's on his male side, he's getting his release. She's on her female side doing her duty to her husband. It was a whole different world. So once the world changed, peacetime, what happened, and Dr. Maslow talked about this in 1940, he explained that we all have needs. Your lower needs are survival and security. And once your lower needs, when you can fulfill them yourself, okay, you're not dependent on anybody else, you can fulfill your survival and security, then suddenly you have new needs. They're just as important as having a house, as having money, as having food in your stomach, having warmth. Survival and security is taken care of to a certain extent. These other needs emerge, and those are the needs for emotional support. For women to get emotional support, they wanted to be free to be masculine and feminine. For men, it was to be feminine and masculine. But for women, the challenge is they get over on their male side. That was the question somebody had. This is all from that question, which is women on their male side are stressed. Oh my God, there's a lot of women making so much money, running companies and all this stuff, and they're stressed. They all come to me. I'm overwhelmed and I'm stressed. What should I do? What should I do? And I do what I say in my books. I sit there and I ask questions, and I get them back to their female side by getting them to cry, crying, emotions, getting them to feel what their emotions are, vulnerability. They're so repressed, the women today. Their mind is complaining. Just as men are addicted to masturbation, women are addicted to complaining. When you complain, it produces estrogen. When you complain, it's an attempt to produce estrogen, but it doesn't. It's like, I need more. I depend on you for more. But you feel I can't get what I need. So you go to your male side and think that if I complain, I'll get it. And complaining produces high levels of dopamine like cocaine. So people who complain a lot, whether out loud or mentally, they're producing various degrees of cocaine level dopamine. And so the brain just keeps going there for the feeling of aliveness that gets produced when you produce dopamine. Men, on the other hand, we can go to masturbation, gives you a shot of dopamine, and then you crash down, your testosterone levels drop. And And so you feel empty. You don't feel satisfied. Then you crave more dopamine stimulation. And that's called an addiction.
See, Mal
it the-
Miranda. Yeah, I'm sorry,
Okay.
Corey. Go ahead. Go ahead,
No,
Corey.
it's all right. I don't have to say anything during the show.
Well,
No,
go ahead.
we
Go-
like you very much. You're
We like
like
you.
an example of a guy way on his female side. You got to see nothing. You just got to be able to identify. Corey's like over at his female side. It's like learning, what do you do to come back to your male side? And the first thing is practice only having sex with somebody you love and ejaculating once a week. That's the key to it. And if you don't have somebody you love to have ejaculate with, then don't ejaculate at all. This is where meditation comes in, because meditation is opening your heart to the universe.
I was at a birthday party yesterday for my kid's friend, and for some reason, all of the parents lined up in sex order. It was just the girls with the girls and the guys with the guys. So I went to the guys. I did the peer pressure thing. The guys were talking about Route 40 and campsites. I'm like, I'm not interested in this. So I went over to where the girls were. The girls were talking about
You're on your female side. You're on your female side.
But the girls were talking about how the guys never pay attention and never do anything. I needed a third gender. There was nothing for me there.
Why? Well, I would have hung out with the girls.
That's funny.
I've always liked the girls, but I grew up with 5 brothers. Then I became a monk. And I think it was to strengthen my male side, because I so much liked girls. I mean, after I was a monk for 9 years, all right, get this. And I came back. The first seminars I taught was The Secrets of Great Sex. I taught Tantra Yoga sex courses. Why was that? I became a sex expert. Why? Because I hadn't had sex most of my 20s, no sex. All I thought about once I was in the world, sex. So I went around like a little Casanova with all these women and had lots and lots of girlfriends, very open. I told them I was exploring, I was learning about sex. Teach me about your body. And these women, this is in the days we didn't have all these great books on sex. I've got a great book on sex, but men didn't know what women needed in sex. And so I went around interviewing women and having sex with them. And they felt happy to tell me, because I've been a monk. And so then I said, hey, I need to earn a living. I'll teach classes on sex. And all I did was get people together, share some of my experiences, and had everybody start talking about their sex experiences. And here was something back then was a big aha for the women, which was the men would talk about their best sexual experience was her sexual fulfillment. That's what it was, is that men get off on women being happy. And then women are like, but why does he ignore me? And why doesn't he talk to me? And why does he do this? Because we don't understand women. Once you understand where the pot of gold is, you're naturally motivated to go after it. If I told you that walking on your hands upside down causes women to have orgasms and desire you, every man would learn how to do it. It's just men don't understand women. And so I started with that. And then from sex courses, I went to intimacy courses, because if you don't have intimacy, you lose interest sexually. I mean, I experienced being with this gorgeous woman, totally beautiful, who I having sex with, loving it. And then after a while, seeing her naked did nothing. What happened? Because we didn't connect mentally and emotionally. Yeah. Women need to feel mentally naked, and then they can open up emotionally naked. Then when they open up physically naked, then they have these fantastic orgasms. But if a woman feels I can't share my thoughts with him, I can't share my feelings with him, or she doesn't even know what she thinks or what she feels, she can always stimulate herself sexually and have like a sneeze of an orgasm, but not the real thing. That's what I'm teaching people, is how to really get to the place of orgasmic happiness for both men and women. But just like if I was saying how to become a millionaire, it takes daily practice. You got to learn a new skill. If I'm teaching a course on on success, which I also wrote books on that, I say the first thing, if you want to have more in your life, whose fault is it you don't have as much? You. But you got to change. You got to change your style. You got to change your presentation. You got to change the way you're thinking. You got to change what you're doing. If you want a different result in your life, you've got to change yourself. You've got to get a new crop. You got to plant a new seed. So you got to adjust, find your true self. And that's how I teach people, first starting with transform yourself, then transform your behavior patterns so that you do what works. And the challenge for people today is what works in relationships today did not work in the past. What worked in the past does not work now, because women are not staying home. Men are just out having fun playing video games and masturbating all the time. So it's a different world today. And we have to adjust. And without a new set of skills, We don't adjust. So what happens is rather than be naked with each other, mentally, emotionally, and physically, we get our feelings hurt because we're hypersensitive. Look at our younger generation. Oh my God, they're like lost. They're hypersensitive. Everything offends them. Everything hurts them. Everything bothers them. Everything's identity. I have to be called a certain thing. We're no longer masculine in this country. And yet on one level, we're obsessed with success and but then they react to that for social causes, which is their feminine side, which is good. That's good. But they're getting offended. They're getting hurt. They have to have safe zones. All of this stuff is hypersensitivity. Hypersensitivity. You can't get your feelings hurt about everything. And I'll add to it, one of the worst things psychology has done is given people I phrases. You know how if you take a psychology course, the first thing they teach you in marriage classes is express how you feel with I phrases. I feel hurt that you did that. How's anybody who hears that not going to feel defensive? Take responsibility for your negative emotions rather than spraying them at your partner. Because as soon as you use negative emotions to get what you want, your brain starts you grow patterns in your brain to reinforce the monkey patterns, which are already there, which is use negativity to get what you want. So if you're not getting what you want, your brain starts looking at justified reasons to be upset. So you have these negative thoughts. You have these automatic negative thoughts. We become pessimists and we lose trust and we feel so hurt. All this stuff is monkey activity, not human activity that we can aspire towards and learn if we practice new skills.
Hey, John,
He's talking to you, Leviton. He's talking to you.
I read your first book, and I actually found it very useful. It's like 25 years ago, maybe?
Yeah, 25 years. Yeah. I wrote it, but that's not my first book. Okay, I wrote What You Feel, You Can Heal. Then I wrote Men, Women, and Relationships. And then I got better at writing and decided you got to make it simple for people. So. Men are from Mars, Women from... That's the one I read. And I found it really useful in my dating because I learned that women do not want to have their problems solved. They want to be listened to. And all I ever did was want to solve problems. And I learned to curb that urge. And it helped me immensely. And I found myself recently, maybe about 5 years ago, just kind of passing that on to a female colleague at work. And she got really offended. She was a millennial. And she got really offended that I was branding certain ways of thinking as male and female. Yes. And I imagine that you're getting that too. What's going on? Are these notions no longer valid, or are people not... hypersensitivity. Now, remember me in the 60s. The Beatles came out. All this huge energy release. If you have talked to New Agers, the New Agers all talk about they're all working on enlightenment to ascend. Ascension's a real thing. It means being able to function from your prefrontal cortex. And when you can function from there, and that doesn't even develop fully till you're 28, by the way, but it develops there where you can have self-reflection and you can learn how to not take things personally. So what's happened is this ascension has happened because we're living in a safer world, even though we have to keep creating fears to avoid all these strong feelings. You see, when you're safe, what happens is then I have access to all of me. And when you have access to all of me, then you're both masculine and feminine. You're both masculine and feminine. So your body is still masculine. Your body, if you're a woman, is still feminine. You know, Miranda has a husband. He knows very clearly if you're a woman, you're going to give different medicines for a woman than for a man. You got to. We're so biologically different. And to think that that's only true when it comes to medicines, it's about how to love somebody. And if you don't understand what biology somebody has, you can't give them what they need, and they don't know what they need. They're confused. Now, I'll tell you something right now, which is if you have an infection right now and you go to the hospital, basically you can measure. They did a study on this. They studied the vitamin D levels. Anybody who goes to a hospital with an infection has low vitamin D below 17. And anybody who has no symptoms, has an infection, no symptoms, their vitamin D is 30 and above. Now mine's 60 because I'm a healthy guy, right? So see, sick people, their vitamin D levels. Now, they don't know. It's not a cure, by the way, but it's looking at what the condition of the body makes you vulnerable to be getting sick. Now, if you're going to get sick, to avoid getting sick, you have to know what you need. If people really understood they need vitamin D and it's super cheap to take if you're not getting the right amount of sunshine, it's easy to get what you need if you know what you need. If you don't know what you need, if you're a woman and you think you're a man, or a woman and a man, and you don't know how to come back to your female side to balance your masculine side, then you're always going to be out of balance, because when people are unhappy, they always do the wrong thing. Let me give you an example of that. Doing the wrong thing generally feels really good in the beginning. If, I know that, I'm 70 years old, right? I'm fit. I have a flat belly. All I have to do is eat a lot of ice cream and my flat belly goes away. Now, part of why I have such good, healthy testosterone levels as a man is I don't have extra belly fat. Belly fat has a function. It produces estrogen. And women who have no estrogen and the body's trying to find their balance, they crave food to put on more fat. That's why people gain so much weight. It's all about hormonal balance. And for men, once you get that belly fat, now you got a battle, because the belly fat makes estrogen. Estrogen pushes down your testosterone. Low testosterone causes you to be out of balance. Interesting thing about men is when your testosterone levels start dropping, you start hanging out more on your female side. And for women, if their estrogen levels go low, they hang out on their male side. We sort of go out of balance. So once you're out of balance, think of it like walking on a tightrope. If I'm leaning to the right and I know, oh, I'm out of balance, I'll go back to the left. But if I go too far to the right, I can't go back to the left. I fall over. And somebody has to point out to all these young people, you have fallen over. You've got to cross back to what your biology is. And it's very hard for them. It's very hard. It's the whole, it started in the universities. I don't teach. I used to teach at Stanford. I've taught around the world at different universities. Now they've kicked me out. The kids will riot. They put up signs. Sometimes they come in, they're disruptive. And they have this whole narrative that anybody talks about gender differences is a sexist. Gender doesn't exist. It's somehow made up. Are you kidding? What medical doctor will say gender is made up? Physically, of course, we're different. And we now know that physically, your hormones determine your mood, your mindset determines your hormones. And I'm adding one more piece to that. Where you put your attention to in relationship determines your hormones as well. So if I'm feeling independent and doing something for myself, and I'm successful at that, or I'm making money or doing something, it's going to raise my testosterone. If somebody's doing something nice for me, then I'll relax and receive. That's going to raise my estrogen. So if I'm stuck to Miranda for a moment, if some woman goes to see your husband and she feels I really need his help, being in his presence, her estrogen levels will go up and her stress level will go down. That's it. More women go to doctors than men. Why?
It's coffee talk with ADIKA. Nothing rhymes with that but chicken tikka. We name drop here. We're Stephen and all his friends.
Okay, we got to get the kids, but before we all go, everybody please subscribe, all that good stuff. And you know what? Click there, click over here, there. Patreon for Corey, for Miranda, all that good stuff. We love you. Hey, see you later. Share this out. Tell people what they're missing, all right? Big mazel to you. ADIKA loves you, baby. Corey, go mess the bed up. Let's see Joanne have a fit.